This is my ranking of games like RimWorld that I've played, based purely on my personal experience. Each one is placed from masterpiece down to trash depending on how deep the colony management is, how well the systems interact, and how much freedom you have to shape your settlement. Let's get straight into the list. Going medieval begins with me guiding a small group of villagers and slowly shaping a medieval settlement from almost nothing. I like how it lets the story form naturally instead of forcing a set path, which makes each run feel a bit different. Building farms, walls, and living spaces is easy to understand, and assigning tasks through the simple interface keeps things moving without confusion. Raids add some tension, though most fights play out on their own once positions are set. The real challenge comes from planning ahead, since small mistakes early on can cause problems later, especially with food and expansion. As the settlement grows, it becomes harder to track everyone and some of that early charm fades. Still, it holds up well as a steady colony builder, landing this in the Great Tier. Necesse starts with me on a simple shoreline, gathering basic tools and slowly building a world that keeps expanding in every direction. What stands out right away is how smoothly everything connects. Since mining leads into crafting, crafting opens up exploration, and that exploration feeds back into building a stronger settlement. I really like how settlers come into play, turning a small base into something that feels alive with roles, tasks, and defenses. Combat also feels active, with different weapons changing how fights play out, especially during boss encounters. The seamless world makes exploring feel natural instead of broken into parts, which keeps the pace steady. It constantly gives something new to work toward without feeling stuck. This one fits cleanly into the Great Tier. Stranded. Alien Dawn starts with me managing a small group of crash survivors on an unfamiliar planet, and it quickly becomes clear that every role matters. Each person has strengths and weaknesses, so choosing who cooks, farms, builds, or fights is something I have to think about constantly. I spend a lot of time setting routines and priorities, while also reacting to sudden problems like alien attacks, extreme weather, or sickness. The personality system adds another layer, since relationships and moods can affect how well everything runs. It feels structured and easy to follow once things settle, but it never really reaches the same depth or unpredictability as some other colony sims. It stays engaging, just not as rich or varied in the long run. This one finds its place in the good tier. Dwarf Fortress begins with me guiding a small group of dwarves, but it quickly turns into something far bigger than a normal colony sim. Every system connects in a deep way, from mining and crafting to managing moods, relationships, and long-term survival. I'm not controlling characters directly. Instead, I'm setting plans and watching how they carry them out based on their own personalities. That leads to moments that feel unpredictable, sometimes funny, sometimes chaotic, and sometimes surprisingly emotional. The world itself feels alive, with its own history, creatures, and events shaping everything that happens. It takes time to learn, and there is a lot to read and understand, but the payoff is huge once things start clicking. Nothing else creates stories quite like this. This easily stands at the masterpiece tier. Clanfolk starts with me guiding a small family trying to survive in a harsh environment, and the focus is clearly on daily life rather than constant danger. I spend most of my time gathering resources, building simple structures, and preparing for winter, which becomes the biggest challenge. What I like is how everything builds step by step, from basic tools to more advanced setups like weaving and metalworking. The interface is easy to understand, and tasks feel natural to assign, so it never becomes confusing. There's no real combat, which changes the pace and makes it more about planning and survival against nature. Watching the settlement grow feels calm, but there's still pressure to stay ready for colder seasons. It keeps things simple while still giving enough depth. This one settles nicely into the Great Tier. Oxygen Not Included starts with me managing 3 duplicates inside a tiny space, and it quickly turns into a complex system where every decision affects something else. At first it feels simple, just digging and building, but soon I'm dealing with oxygen, flow, temperature, food supply, and power all at once. I really like how everything connects, where fixing one problem can easily create another if I'm not careful. The duplicates have their own traits and behavior, which adds personality, but can also make things harder when they ignore tasks. The visual style makes it easy to understand what's happening, especially with gases and heat. It can get stressful when systems start failing, but it keeps me thinking and adjusting constantly. There's always something to improve or fix. This clearly belongs in the masterpiece tier. Prison Architect begins with me designing a small prison, and I quickly realize that every little detail matters. I'm not just placing walls, I have to plan proper layouts, connect water and power, and make sure each room works the way it should. If something is missing, everything can break down fast. I spend a lot of time managing prisoners, staff, and daily routines, while also dealing with sudden problems like fights, riots, or fires. Money is always a concern, so expanding too quickly can cause more trouble later. I like how flexible the building system is, since I can shape the prison in different ways depending on how I want it to run. It feels complex early on, but gets easier with time. This one earns its place in the excellent tier. Stardeus has me managing a damaged spaceship, where the first priority is restoring basic systems before everything breaks down completely. Early on, drones take care of most tasks like repairing structures, building sections, and following the priorities I set. I spend a lot of time fixing power, oxygen, and safe zones, since even small mistakes can cause serious issues. Once humans wake up, things get more complicated, especially since they don't always behave as expected. Exploring space and gathering resources adds a sense of progress, but it takes time to reach that point. The systems are interesting, though the interface can feel awkward, and occasional bugs can interrupt the flow. It feels solid in parts, but not fully polished yet. This one sits in the good tier. Songs of Six builds into a massive city simulation, where scale becomes the biggest challenge as small settlements grow into huge populations that need constant attention. Every citizen has needs like food, housing, and services, and ignoring any of them can lead to unrest or even collapse. I spend a lot of time balancing resources, planning layouts, and keeping production chains running without breaking. The different races add another layer, since each one changes how the entire system works and forces different approaches. Combat and expansion also play a role, which makes it feel larger than a typical colony sim. It takes time to understand, but becomes very rewarding once things click. This one earns its place in the excellent tier. Mind Over Magic focuses on running a magical school, where I'm building rooms, training mages, and trying to survive against a deadly fog that keeps pushing closer. I spend most of my time designing classrooms, dorms, and workspaces while making sure everyone stays fed, rested, and productive. Each mage has their own strengths, so managing roles and schedules becomes important as things grow. The fog system adds constant pressure, since I always need to prepare defenses to keep it from taking over parts of the school. There's also dungeon exploration below, which adds another layer with turn-based combat and resource gathering. It feels easier to approach than some deeper sims, but still has enough systems to stay interesting. It keeps things engaging without getting too overwhelming. This one fits nicely into the great tier. Colony survival mixes first-person building with colony management, and I spend my time creating a small settlement while assigning workers to handle farming, mining, and crafting. It's interesting to see villagers automate tasks like growing food or producing materials, which slowly turns the place into a self-sustaining system. I also have to defend the colony from nightly zombie attacks, so setting up guards and basic defenses becomes part of the routine. Early on, there's a nice sense of progression as I unlock new jobs and expand production chains. However, after a while, things start to feel limited since the threats don't scale much and the systems stop evolving in meaningful ways. Once everything is stable, there isn't much pushing things forward anymore. It stays interesting for a while, but doesn't go very deep. This one sits in the good tier. Ratopia builds around managing a society of rats, where I'm digging, building, and setting up systems to keep everything running smoothly. I like the idea behind it, since it feels different from typical colony sims, and the art style gives it a lot of personality. There are systems for resources, economy, and even diplomacy, so there's always something to manage as the colony grows. It's not too hard to understand either, which makes it easy to get into at the start. But after spending more time with it, the pacing feels slow, and some parts don't feel as polished as they could be. Issues with pathfinding and small bugs can break the flow, especially in larger setups. It has charm, but doesn't fully deliver on its ideas. This one ends up in the mediocre tier. Noble Fates lets me run a small kingdom while also controlling a ruler directly, which gives it a different feel compared to most colony sims. I spend time managing people, assigning jobs, and making decisions that affect how everyone sees me, since the morality system plays a big role. Characters remember actions, so even small choices can change relationships and loyalty over time. There are also RPG elements like leveling skills and equipping gear, which adds another layer on top of the usual building and resource management. But while the ideas are interesting, the execution feels uneven. Systems like dialogue and time progression can feel confusing or repetitive, and managing everything doesn't always feel smooth. It has some unique concepts, but doesn't fully come together. This one ends up in the mediocre tier. Keplerth places me on a strange planet where I start with nothing and slowly build up by gathering resources, crafting tools, and exploring dangerous areas. Early on, survival is the main focus, since I need food, shelter, and basic weapons just to stay alive. I spend time fighting creatures, collecting materials, and improving my gear so I can explore further without getting overwhelmed. There's also some colony-style elements, like farming and setting up a base, which add more depth over time. The gene system is a nice touch, letting me upgrade abilities and shape how my character plays. It can feel a bit rough at the start, but once things open up, it becomes quite engaging. It doesn't reach the depth of bigger sims, but still offers plenty to do. This one sits in the good tier. Norland focuses on managing a small medieval kingdom where I'm balancing resources, people, and relationships while trying to keep everything stable. Instead of controlling everyone directly, I rely on lords to manage tasks, which adds an interesting layer since they have their own moods and priorities. I spend a lot of time managing the economy, setting wages, and making sure people have enough food and supplies to stay happy. Diplomacy also plays a big role, since nearby kingdoms can become allies or threats depending on how things are handled. There's always something happening, from internal problems like unrest to outside pressure from rivals. It feels different from typical colony sims, with more focus on leadership and politics. It takes time to understand but stays engaging once it clicks. This one fits well into the great tier. Space Haven revolves around managing a spaceship crew while building systems that keep everything running during long journeys through space. Early on, things feel simple with basic rooms and tasks, but it quickly becomes more complex as oxygen, temperature, and resources all need constant attention. I spend a lot of time salvaging wrecks and exploring new sectors, which keeps progress steady and adds variety. Research plays an important role since each unlock changes how the ship functions and opens new possibilities. There are also constant risks like fires, lack of oxygen, and extreme conditions that need quick decisions to avoid disaster. It can feel overwhelming at first, but becomes very satisfying once everything starts working together. This one secures its spot in the excellent tier. Kenshi gives me a massive open world with no clear goal, and I decide what kind of life to follow from the very start. I can become a wanderer, build a settlement, trade, or just try to survive in a harsh environment where almost everything can kill me. What stands out is how open the systems are, since nothing is forced and progress comes from what I choose to do. I spend time exploring, gathering resources, and slowly improving skills while also dealing with hunger, danger, and constant setbacks. The world feels rough and sometimes empty, and the visuals are not great, but the freedom and depth make up for it. It keeps creating new situations without needing a fixed story. This one clearly earns its place in the masterpiece tier. That's my full breakdown of colony sims that capture the RimWorld style experience in different ways. Some go deeper with complex systems and emergent stories, while others keep things simpler, but each one offers its own kind of colony building journey. Thanks for watching.